Today's story will make you rethink judgment, kindness, and the power of transformation. It's not about politics or a controversial hat, but about the unexpected consequences of decisions made without understanding the bigger picture. Join us as we unfold a shocking, life-changing moment that will leave you reflecting long after the story ends. It was a cold, crisp morning when Peter Donovan, a middle-aged man in a worn-out suit, entered the downtown bank. He wasn't anyone special, just another face in the crowd. Yet today, he would be remembered. Not for his appearance, but for what happened in the brief moments he spent at the teller's desk. Peter wore a red MAGA hat, a symbol of a political movement that had divided the country. For some, it was a symbol of pride. For others, it represented something darker. Peter wasn't a loud man, though. He wasn't there to make a scene. He just wanted to do his banking. As he stepped up to the counter, he noticed the bank manager, Mr. Thompson, eyeing him from across the room. There was something cold about Thompson's gaze, a look that made Peter's stomach churn. He had no idea why, but it felt like he was being judged. Mr. Thompson, with a smug look, walked over to Peter. "I'm sorry, sir," he said, his tone polite but distant. "We cannot serve customers who wear divisive political symbols in the bank. Please take off your hat or leave." Peter blinked, confused and stunned. "Excuse me, it's just a hat." But Mr. Thompson wasn't backing down. "I said leave. You are making others uncomfortable." The words felt sharp, cutting through Peter's chest. Peter stood frozen. He didn't know how to respond. He wasn't a man who caused trouble. All he wanted was to withdraw some money and go home. But now he felt humiliated, ashamed, and as he walked out of the bank, his heart heavy with anger and confusion, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just been judged unfairly. The incident haunted him throughout the day. The weight of the humiliation seemed to linger in every step he took. Peter had grown up in a world where respect was paramount. He had always believed that people should be judged by their actions, not by their appearance or political opinions. But in that bank, it seemed that his mere choice of headwear was enough to get him dismissed. The feeling gnawed at him, but there was nothing he could do. It was just a small moment, he tried to convince himself, but the sting was real. Days passed, and Peter tried to forget the incident. He kept going to work, kept doing his best to get by. But something was eating away at him. He couldn't stop thinking about how he had been treated. Peter had always been a quiet, unassuming man. He never sought the spotlight, never looked for confrontation, but there was something about that moment, about Mr. Thompson's coldness, that stirred something deep within him. He began to question the assumptions he had held for years, about politics, about people, about himself. He went through his daily routine, but the sense of frustration continued to build. It was as if he had been unjustly treated, dismissed by someone who had no real understanding of who he was or what he stood for. And yet, Peter wasn't sure he truly understood it all himself. Then, one fateful day, he saw an announcement on the news. Elon Musk, billionaire entrepreneur and CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, was in town for a business meeting. Peter didn't think much of it at first, but something about the timing felt strange. The very next morning, Peter was walking down the street when he saw a familiar face, a man in a black suit and sunglasses, standing by a luxury car. The man looked out of place, yet oddly familiar. And then it hit him. The man had the same jawline as the man he had seen on the news. Could it be? Was it really him? Without thinking, Peter approached him. "Excuse me, are you Elon Musk?" Peter asked, half doubting himself. The man smiled. "I am indeed." His voice was calm, yet somehow different. Peter stood there, not sure what to say. He couldn't believe it. The man he had just encountered, who looked so ordinary, yet had a presence that radiated power, was none other than Elon Musk. But why was he standing here in front of this small cafe at this random moment? Peter had no idea. Elon Musk was everything Peter was not. He was a household name, a visionary, someone who had made a mark on the world. Peter couldn't help but feel like a speck of dust compared to him. But Elon didn't seem to notice. In fact, he looked at Peter like they were equals. Then, something strange happened. Elon turned to him and said, "I remember you. I saw you at the bank the other day." Peter was stunned. "You saw me?" he asked, surprised. "How could you have known?" Elon's eyes glinted mysteriously as he took a step closer. "You didn't recognize me back then, but I knew exactly who you were, and I remember how you were treated." Peter was speechless. "What do you mean?" Elon smiled softly. "The hat, the judgment. But that's the past, Peter. I wanted to meet you here because I think you deserve better. A second chance." Peter didn't understand. What was Elon talking about? He hadn't been seeking anyone's approval, let alone an apology. And yet, there was something in Elon's words that struck a chord deep within him. It felt like the weight of that humiliating moment at the bank was finally being acknowledged. Peter stood frozen, trying to make sense of what Elon had just said. "You know who I am?" Peter asked, his voice shaking. Elon nodded. "I do. I've been watching people like you for a long time. People who have been judged by their appearance or their beliefs. You don't deserve that." Peter blinked in disbelief. "But how could you know that? How could you even care?" Elon paused, his gaze distant, almost like he was lost in thought. "Because I've been there too, Peter. I've been misunderstood. I've been judged. I've been in your shoes. And sometimes the world forgets that we're all human." Peter's mind was spinning. This didn't make sense, but somehow it did. The man standing in front of him, Elon Musk, was telling him things that were so deep, so personal, that Peter could feel his walls beginning to crack. In that moment, Peter saw the world through a different lens. It wasn't just about a hat. It wasn't just about politics. It was about how people treat each other based on surface-level judgments. How often did we judge someone for their appearance, for their political affiliations, without ever really getting to know who they were as a person? Peter was beginning to realize that the world didn't need more judgment. It needed more understanding, more compassion. And in that instant, he saw that Elon Musk, this powerful, influential figure, was offering him something far more valuable than wealth or status: understanding. Over the next few days, Peter's life began to change in ways he couldn't understand. Elon reached out to him with a proposition. Peter was offered a position at one of Elon's companies, an opportunity that seemed too good to be true. Peter hesitated, unsure if this was just a fleeting dream. Could it be real? Could someone like him really have a chance at something so much bigger? But the offer was undeniable. And with a mix of fear and excitement, Peter accepted. Little did he know that this decision would lead to something even more unexpected. Peter had never imagined himself in the world of high-tech companies or billionaire innovators, but something about Elon's offer felt different. It wasn't just about the job, it was about a new beginning, a chance to redefine himself. Peter had always been a man of integrity, but this new opportunity could offer him something that the bank manager, Mr. Thompson, had taken from him: dignity. As he settled into his new role, Peter realized that the job wasn't just about technical skills or innovation. It was about being part of something that valued people, that saw potential beyond the surface. And slowly, Peter began to see the changes in himself. He wasn't just the man who had been humiliated in a bank. He was someone who had the potential to make a real impact on the world. Months later, Peter stood in front of the same bank where it all began. But this time he wasn't the same man. He was different, more confident, more composed. He walked into the bank with a sense of purpose, wearing a tailored suit that fit perfectly. The same bank manager, Mr. Thompson, was behind the counter, looking over paperwork. He didn't recognize Peter at first, until Peter walked up to him. "Excuse me, Mr. Thompson," Peter said, his voice calm yet firm. "I believe we met before." Mr. Thompson looked up, blinking in confusion. "I'm sorry, sir. Have we met?" Peter smiled. "You might not recognize me, but I remember you. You refused me service once, based on something as small as a hat." Then the color drained from Mr. Thompson's face as the realization dawned. "Wait a minute. You're the man from before?" Peter nodded. "Yes, I am. But I'm not just any man anymore." And Peter reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. He handed it to Mr. Thompson, whose eyes widened as he read the name. Peter Donovan, Senior Executive, SpaceX. You're Elon Musk's executive, Mr. Thompson stammered, completely taken aback. Peter gave a soft, almost sad smile. Yes, I am. And I've come here to remind you that sometimes you never truly know who someone is until it's too late. The bank manager's face flushed. His arrogance had led him to make a snap judgment, one that would follow him for years to come. The humbling reality of Peter's transformation was too much for Mr. Thompson to bear. The judgment that had once seemed so simple now seemed like a cruel, blind misstep. Peter knew he could have retaliated, could have made Mr. Thompson feel as small as he had. But instead, he walked away, leaving behind a man who would never forget the lesson he had learned. And just like that, Peter's life had changed. He had gone from being humiliated in a small bank to standing as someone who had defied the odds. The world might have judged him for a hat, but now he was someone to be reckoned with. We all have our moments of doubt, moments when we feel judged by others. But as Peter's story shows, life has a funny way of showing us that things are not always as they seem. Sometimes the person you look down on today might just be the one to surprise you tomorrow. And thank you for listening to this story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you found it inspiring. And remember, never judge a book by its cover. The next person you meet might just change your life forever.